Hey guys, it's your host Elex, and I just want to say thank you for tuning in to another episode of Mental Mixology. All right, everybody, we are back today and we are talking about the connection of the things we watch and how we feel. Me personally, I know I have my own comfort shows and movies. A lot of people do. Shrek has been my rotation movie right now, and Mike and Molly is like my favorite show. But aside from having comfort shows, comfort movies, there is one thing that I don't think people talk about enough, and that is the triggers that are in some of these shows and movies that we don't realize until it's too late. Even this is a little bit of a stretch, but the show Euphoria, a lot of us watched it. The new season came up. And if I'm being honest, I don't know if it's because my frontal lobe has developed since the new season, but it's just been really unsettling to watch for me. And I really haven't continued through. I think I watched the first 2 or 3 episodes and I can't watch anymore if I'm being honest with you. So today I have an amazing guest who, from her own experiences, has created a software called SkipIt that she is about to launch here soon. She's going to talk about what she has put together, why she has put it together. So I'm really excited to not only be able to talk about this new technology, but to just see the why behind all of it. So, Emily, thank you so much for coming on Mental Mixology today. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much, Alex, for having me. I'm really excited to be here and excited to talk a little bit more about Skip It and also my mental health journey and what caused me to become the entrepreneur that I am today.
So, Emily, you are a tech founder who's using AI to make the digital world a safer place for all of us. With the software SkipIt that you've created, where did this idea stem from?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had the idea because my parents are in the film industry. So I grew up around a lot of television and film. And for me, it was always a form of connection and then also kind of like processing emotions. And in the same sense, I feel like for a lot of us, like when we're going through something, we just kind of like put on a show and allow ourselves to like be immersed in whatever we're watching. And so that's how I always associated it. But a few years ago, I went through an abusive relationship and I developed PTSD. And at the time, like I didn't have the resources that I needed to really be processing what had happened to me. And so at the same time, I was watching films trying to escape what I was dealing with. And in watching those things, there was oftentimes scenes depicting sexual assault, domestic abuse that were extremely traumatizing and or re-traumatizing for me. And I realized how little a say we have over what we're watching until we're already in the middle of it. I think that also kind of came up when I was a teenager dealing with like mental health concerns. 13 Reasons Why was around. There was also like You. I think a lot of the shows that are really geared towards teenagers can be very harmful in some senses, especially like when
Mhm.
you're already vulnerable, dealing with like eating disorders, self harm, whatever it is. And just individuals who, are maybe a little bit more sensitive as well. So, that was really what caused me to want to work on this problem. I did a lot of research and throughout like my journey of doing it, I would look up the plot ahead of time. I'd use tools like Does the Dog Die, Common Sense Media. And what I realized is that there was nothing that was like holding my hand through it, helping me
Mhm.
like cut those scenes as I'm watching, almost as if like my partner, like he covers my eyes, which is helpful, but
Yeah.
like you shouldn't have to do that just to enjoy a
No.
show.
Mhm.
And so like we're trying to also add in some other tools like self-soothe skills to help people as well, but keeping like the mental health at the center of it, also broadening, we call it like emotional accessibility for media is really what we're aiming for.
Amazing. And I mean, you talked about some of the shows that have come out that have really just made this more problematic, especially for adolescent generations or adolescent groups. But with that being said, in our pre show interview, you talked about some statistics that went back to that. You want to hit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the statistics that I found most jarring, it's honestly kind of hard to find statistics that show the direct correlation just
Mm.
because we think about social media, but media itself also definitely has an impact as well. But The Journal of the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry ran a study in 2019 where there was a 28.9% increase in the US youth suicide rates after 13 Reasons Why came out. And following that, 3 months later, after that study came out, they actually
Mhm.
removed the graphic suicide scene. So there's definitely this knowledge that the content that we're producing and like spreading out there does have an impact on people's mental health, but I don't think it's been as much of a priority as it should be. There is data as well, like, there's been plenty of like court cases where parents are suing social media platforms because of the content that their kids are consuming. And like, maybe it's
Mhm.
perpetuating eating disorders, having impacts on like their mental health related to like self harm, suicide, etc. But in addition, I think that there is this really under discussed issue with the representation of like mental health concerns, eating disorders, all of this stuff in media like Euphoria,
Mhm.
Gossip Girl, 13 Reasons Why, as we were talking about, all of these shows that are marketed to the audience that is struggling with it the most. But also, just in Hollywood as a whole, there's definitely a lot of like graphic sexual assaults, domestic abuse. The way that we market things isn't always like transparent for users as well. I remember It Ends With Us had a lot of controversy because the way that it was marketed was like, oh, like go grab your girls and your florals and go like, it's a
Uh-huh.
rom-com. It's not a rom-com. It's a very honestly, like, I watched the movie myself. I was very surprised I was able to watch it. Thank you. Shout out to my boyfriend. But the way that it's depicted is actually, like, I would say a pretty interesting portrayal because
Mhm.
just it's honestly pretty accurate to the way that I feel like a abusive relationship is portrayed, where it's kind of hard
Mhm.
to tell that it's going on until you zoom out.
I didn't read the book. I thought the same thing going into it. And
Yeah.
as you said, until there was press going out about it and I was seeing interviews, I'm like, okay, that's really good to know.
Exactly, like, the way that we market things is just not very
Mhm.
transparent, and really, like, what we're aiming for SkipIt to be is, like, not the censorship, that's definitely not what we want
Mhm.
because, again, grew up in the industry, I appreciate a great story and, but I've also seen the implications that it can have when you aren't really knowledgeable about what you're going into, or maybe I wanna enjoy, like, 99% of it, and there's, like, 12 seconds that I'd rather not see, you know what I mean? So that's really what we're aiming for is the enabling users who might not otherwise be able to watch the content or might have difficulty consuming it, being able to have a little bit more accessibility around that.
That's why it's hard because, as you said, with storytelling, there's a lot of creativity that goes into that. And it's just like
Absolutely.
not everybody can handle the same things. I mean, like, it's to the point where now, too, if I'm eating dinner, I can't even, and this isn't really even a mental health thing, I can't watch the doctor shows because if I'm
Oh, yeah.
eating, I'm at the point where it turns my stomach so quickly. And it is, I mean, obviously, I don't watch those shows when I'm eating now, but it blows my mind how many shows nowadays that we watch. And I mean, something you don't expect pops up. So that's why Skip It is such a cool idea because I mean, there's similar kind of filtering softwares out there, but not in the mental health regard. And as someone who has gotten anxiety, you'll get a lasting impression when you see something that you're not expected or ready to
You
see.
close your eyes and you still see it.
Exactly, and it doesn't go away. And so out
Yeah.
of curiosity with Skip It, because we are gonna talk a little bit more about it throughout the episode, but is this something that people are just gonna be able to use on their cell phones? Can they use it on streaming apps like Netflix and Hulu? What parameters
Yeah,
are really on
absolutely.
this?
So the way that it works for our initial launch, so we're launching at $1.99, and that's just the browser extension. So you have to have Netflix, Hulu, whatever streaming platform you want to actually be watching on, you have to have them. And then it works as like an overlay. So you go into your settings, you say like, oh, I don't want to see sexual assault. I want 10 seconds notice and like I want the pop-up, right? And then
Mhm,
you go into like our library, which just basically pulls like all of the movies that we've already pre-screened. You can click on whichever movie you want there, and then it takes you to Netflix per se. And then as you're watching, you get like the little pop-up that'll say like, oh, there's a scene containing sexual assault. Do you want to view a description? You can view a description of like what's going to happen in the scene because
mhm.
we believe that that also enables the user to like have a little bit more understanding of like how intense it might be as well. And then you can skip the scene and then you get like a summary of what happened. So you can stay updated with the plot, or you can also dismiss the notification, you don't need the summary. But yeah, that's how it's
Awesome.
working, and we're trying to, like, do as much testing as possible and also, like, try to make it as specific to the user as possible because for some triggers, like, maybe they don't wanna see the scene period, they don't even want the notification, and then for other things, like, you do wanna know what's happening, and so that's why we're making the settings extremely, like, granular, and we've taken so much time and care to do, like, the customer discovery, do, like, the beta testing
Mhm.
and all of that, but that's how it will work, and then we ultimately, like, with our funding, our fundraising, we will be able to make it a smart TV app as well as also having, like, the iOS so you can watch it on your phone as well.
Amazing.
And then ultimately, like, later down the line, we will have licensing hopefully to the streaming platforms themselves and try to create, like, some partnerships in the emotional intelligence space for media. So, yeah, we're trying to create, like, a
Gosh.
really comprehensive trigger data set as well, of just kind of, like, breaking down, different levels of different triggers and, different examples of them as well.
This is incredible. This makes me
Thank you.
so happy and so
Thank
excited.
you.
So with Skip It though, you do have a mental health organization that you kind of run in tandem with this. So yeah, I want you to kind of connect the two here so people can
Yeah.
see, I mean, just really how big of a imprint that you're having on this industry.
Absolutely. Yeah. So back in high school, as I mentioned, like I was dealing with like my mental health and I did try to like learn more about myself. So I would do research online. A lot of the stuff that I found was either like scientific, like research papers or
Mhm.
kind of not very specific, like fluffy sort of stuff. And so I decided
Yeah,
to
like the
create like
positive, shoot for the stars, keep your
yeah,
head
like,
up.
"Oh, it gets better, like, you're not alone,"
Mhm.
that sort of stuff, or honestly, like, the opposite where people would be, like, villainizing certain, like, mental health conditions and stuff, and, like, when
Yeah.
you're a teenager, like, dealing with all of this and, like, you're already, like, kind of your own worst critic, and then you're, like,
Uh-huh.
reading more stuff online, which is, like, either super old, outdated, like, psychiatric journals or fluffy
Uh-huh.
stuff or, like, not trauma-informed, like, people, like, bashing people with mental illnesses, like, it is very
Yeah.
hard to feel like there is a positive trajectory for your life, I guess. And
Yeah.
that was what I felt like. It also felt like I had very little control over like my recovery and like what my life was going to look like. And so I decided to create like a resource page. It was an organization back in high school, but since then it's like more of just like a research page or resource page that I have active just because I'm no longer a teenager and like I try to keep it as updated as possible. But it was really the mission behind it was like a teenager running a mental health teenager organization. So I do
Yeah.
ultimately depending on like the path of my life and hopefully I'll be able to like put some money into it, but I would love to bring on a teenager of the younger generation and be able to like I could kind
Mhm.
of like continue that. But basically it's called Sofrancini Mental Health. It helps educate teenagers again about their mental health from the lens of both like the scientific but also like written in a way that's understandable. So we tried to incorporate as many different like learning styles as possible. So we had videos, articles,
Nice.
like things that you could read about like how the brain actually works. So like if we're talking
Mhm.
about like a certain mental health condition, we'll talk about like, oh, this is the neurotransmitter involved, this is the part of the brain, and then you can click on that and it will kind of talk to you more about we had the brain tour. That was my favorite page. You could click on the different parts of the brain.
Oh, that's
It's still
cool.
active, but and then you can see
I
when they
love it.
evolve and all of that. Because for me, especially when I was learning about like medications, and they were like,
Mhm.
"Oh, this is the medication you have to take." I'm like, "What does this actually do? Does this actually do anything?" I feel like not
Mhm.
very good. Sorry, I'm gonna not swear. I don't feel because of like all these side effects. So like, how long
Mhm.
do I have to take it to actually feel something? Because again, the
Yeah.
psychiatrist sometimes will just be like, "Oh, you feel this way? Here's this medication," and not
Mhm.
explain any of the side effects or what actually happens to you. And so that was
Mhm.
like, why I started that organization. I wanted to work for like the United Nations or like some sort of like nonprofit. And so I
Aw.
actually studied international relations and psychology at my first school. But
Nice.
I think through Babson, which is the school that I'm at now, and through my journey of also working in different industries, like I worked in hospitality as well, I've learned that so much of the world can be impacted by like businesses too. Like you
Mhm.
can have a career in like social impact business. It doesn't have to
Mhm.
be like profit versus benefit, like it can be both. So
Yeah.
really that's what I've learned through Sovereignty and I was able to help people and it really did make me feel very fulfilled and I know that like SkipIt is the path that I'm meant to be on. So
That's amazing, and I will get
thank you.
the link for that site from you, and we can put it in the show notes, and we can also put it in our mental health resource library, so anybody wanting
Yeah.
to utilize that, we'll make that very accessible for you guys once you're done listening to the episode. But that is really cool, and I just think, I mean, it showed you from a very young age that you were drawn to help with mental health and just get more
Yeah,
resources out there, so
technology and mental health right in the middle. Yeah, I mean, I was never very technical, but I learned how to use Wix when I was, like, 16 because I wanted to make this, so, and now I'm learning how to code, so we're getting there.
well, and I mean, it's a digital age, and we are just getting more digital and more technical, and something like this really will definitely help a lot of future generations as well as this continues to evolve. But another thing that I do want to just get your take on, because you talked about just with younger generations that it is harder for them to really find information that makes sense to them and relates to them. So, what is your experience with just trying to find resources at that age? Like you said, trying to find something good between the fluff and the words that nobody understands.
Yeah, I definitely think that there have been more efforts and also like, I don't know, there's certain initiatives that are kind of like branching out and like people are talking about mental health more,
Mhm,
particularly after COVID. I graduated high school during COVID, so like some of this
mhm,
I haven't seen like firsthand, but we have like the IDs on like the IDs like this hotline on the back of IDs. I know that that's gotten like more
mhm,
popular at high schools. They also have like mental health organizations like the JED Foundation. They're great. And then, I have done research recently where I feel like more of the information has been better, but also at the same time, these generations, like in my generation as well, or our generation, like we definitely consume a lot of the content via social media. So
mhm,
TikTok and Instagram, and that's like the most accessible form
mhm,
of content, I would say, like in education. But I think that that can be detrimental because these streaming platform, or sorry, these, I think that that can be detrimental because these platforms can also push more negative stuff when you're
mhm,
looking up eating disorders, for example. I've had like multiple of my friends talk to me about this, but it'll be a little tiny plate and like there's not a lot of food on it, and they're like, this is
mhm.
what I eat to be healthy, blah blah blah. They know what you're watching and they know that you're going to watch more of it, so they just push all of it regardless of the impact that it will have. And I think that is really like harmful. And I think there definitely needs to be something that's done about it, not just from the content kind of like moderation standpoint, where we're kind
Mhm.
of aiming for with Skip It, but also need to like, put more money as a government and as a society into like pushing the positive stuff. Like even the redirection, like when you're typing on social media, if you type up like any keywords, it'll pop up like, oh, like here's the hotline. Like that sort of stuff, it can be really
Mhm.
helpful. But also like when you're in a crisis state, like it can be really hard to actually do anything with it. So,
Yeah.
I think if there was a platform that would really, or sorry, if there was a company or organization that really like worked on creating the super educational videos that are fun enough for the teenagers to actually watch it, I think that that could be really great. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be a long-winded response, but
No, but it's important doing that, but then also giving people the chance to find other things to do. Because I think these kids, I mean, I hate to say this, but the iPad kids, they have a hard time because you grow up around it. You always have a screen, so it's
you don't know how to be bored.
exactly, second nature to grab an iPad or grab the TV remote, and I think it's
Yeah.
so important for people that have influence around these younger moldable minds, because finding a hobby or something to do instead of grabbing your phone, because like you said,
Yes.
with all of the social media out there, it's so easy to just scroll, to get so consumed by it, and it's really having an impact on mental health. Like, I just got off my birth control, and I was telling my friend how I'm scared that I've been on it forever. My body's going to start reacting weird now. And I go on TikTok and it's talking about getting blood clots and endometriosis and every negative, like so
Lovely.
far. No, literally, like so far wind, negative things. And I'm now sitting here freaking out, like, oh my gosh, like, what if I
It
get
just
this
puts you
and
down the
this?
rabbit hole, like, literally,
Mhm,
yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I've definitely experienced that before, so no, it's not fun, but absolutely, I think, trying to encourage people to explore, like, artistic hobbies too, you don't have to be good
mhm,
at it, like, for me, when I went through dealing with self-harm for a long time, and the one thing that really helped me was painting. Even though, like, I wouldn't say I'm the
mhm,
best painter, but for me, like, that was just it was so much better than being destructive. And, I think that there are a lot of things that we can do to like encourage everybody to kind of like, go out and touch some
Mhm.
grass, go and like
Yep.
make something. For example, like I've been seeing like I on my Instagram, like you can change like the algorithm and stuff. So I've been like trying to look up more craft projects so that I like when I do have free time, which is
Ooh.
pretty rare, but I try to like do like a junk journal. I've been like saving like scraps for that. My friend like taught me how to crochet last year, and so like I'm trying
I
to like
love
make
it.
like a little plushie. My other friend does clay. She made this for me. This is
Oh,
Skippy the
that's
bunny. This
so
is our
cute.
mascot. Yes.
Stop,
But
I
yeah, she's
love
so
it.
good at
That's
clay.
perfect.
Literally. So, yeah, I think it's, like, so important to, like, channel it into something, and for me, like,
Mhm.
honestly, most of the time I have a TV show in the background just kind of, like, as a calming, like,
Without a doubt.
little thing while I'm knitting or whatever it is, but yeah, I definitely think that, like, we need to start putting our phones down a little bit
Mhm.
more, not to sound repetitive, but yeah.
No, but even like you said, the background noise, like my listeners know I'm a Disney adult. I'm not one of the crazy Disney adults that like
I'm also, so
dresses up, but, like, full on princess, but I will have my Disney live streams or, like, watch YouTubers, and I'll have that on the background, so I totally get that. It's just like you said, it's good being able to turn it off, be able to, like, take yourself away from the tech when you need to, and be able
Mhm.
to use it when you can. Everything is good in moderation, so always keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And I think I talked about this a lot, like, when I was working on, like, my mental health organization as well. I think that we need to start talking about mental health much earlier, like, honestly,
Mhm.
even, like, kindergarten, because, like, that's
Yep.
when you're, like, learning how to, like, kinda set your boundaries, right? Say, like,
Mhm.
"No, I don't want that," or "Yes," like, share, whatever. And I think, like, we
Mhm.
can talk about it as the form of empathy or, like, when you feel sad, like, talking about it like you do with your physical feelings. But, yeah, we worked on some legislation trying to get K through 12, mental health education passed, but people were,
Gosh.
like, pushing back on that, and I'm like, "Okay, it doesn't have to be like you're talking about, like, really scary things with kindergartners. It's just, like, having, like, an early conversation, like, if you feel sad, like, tell somebody."
Like you said, knowing the range of emotions. Because one thing I've realized is adults get overstimulated, kids get overstimulated. And like just as we get frustrated and we can get upset, we have adult tantrums when that happens. That's something that kids, they don't realize that that's okay. They don't realize it's normal. So we're not explaining what the amygdala is to a bunch of kindergartners. We're telling them, hey, like, this is what sadness is. This is what happiness. This is, like you said, boundaries. The foundation is, I agree with you,
Like
really important.
breathing, focusing on your senses, like
Mhm.
grounding tools, like it
Yep.
doesn't have to be in the form of like we're learning an acronym tip. I don't know if you know tip, but if you feel stressed out, like we could try like a temperature thing, like hold an ice
Mhm.
cube, little ways, baby steps
Love.
in building these long-term skills because oftentimes like I learned all of these when I already had negative coping skills that I had learned, and then
Yep.
you're trying to rebuild this, like, foundation as you're talking about and
Mhm.
start from scratch, and when you're already stressed out, trying to learn all of this, like, it's a lot. So I
Mhm.
think that it could help with, like, preventing bullying too, because we're learning about, like,
Yep.
empathy and, like, understanding what other people are going through
Mhm.
and helping ourselves, like, calm down so that we're not taking it out on other people.
Mhm.
But I honestly think that K through 12 education would have such an impact, like, on, like, mental health in general and for the long term and, like, bettering the future generations as well, so
Well, it's incredible you're doing that. And I'm really hoping and praying that as time continues to move on, that that is something that, yeah, we can, I don't know, have a little bit more support on with
Mhm.
everybody in the country.
Yes, I hope so too. I think, there's hopefully a few things that we can agree on, and I think that that would be one of them, so
Yeah, eventually. It's small, steady steps, day by
yes,
day.
exactly,
So,
yeah.
to dive in more to really just kind of explain Skip It to people. So, first, when will people be able to use Skip It on their browsers or just kind of
Yeah.
as a back way for their streaming
Absolutely.
services?
So we're aiming for July, for our launch. We do have a wait list open right now, so we have people that are, like, ready to beta test, and so if you join the wait list and you want a beta test, we're happy to, like, send it to you guys. It'll probably be a couple more weeks before that's ready just because we're trying to, like, refine the pipeline as well so that we have more movies. Because right now we only have, like, 40 or so that we've
Okay.
screened, but developing, like, the pipeline, that will definitely help with that. But
Mhm.
yes, we're aiming for July for our public launch and then aiming for next year for, like, the television, not just the browser extension. So
Amazing. So let's say so where will they go? And we'll have the link to this, but just to kind of
yeah,
explain the process as someone's like, I want to check this out and be able to use it.
absolutely. So we have like our website, which is like skipit.tech. And then we also have like our wait list, which is like a tally link. And then you can fill out some questions, join the wait list. And then we also have some like optional questions to help us, which basically like says like, oh, like how much would you pay for this? Like what sort of triggers do you deal with? So that way we can kind of understand like what the priorities should be. And also like if there's something that we're not even thinking about, and then what sort of features people are looking for. We're also developing, or we have a Discord community. So if you join that and you want to join the Discord community, we're trying to like talk about movies, talk about triggers, talk about like coping skills and that sort of stuff, and really help like help us develop the product that is designed for all of the users that will be, benefiting most from this. So that's how you can get involved.
Perfect. And like I said, will get all of this information she is talking about and get it into the show notes. So if you're interested, look at the details of the episode and you'll be able to get all of this through there. The next question I had too was what groups, and I know that this is for anybody and everybody, but what are some groups that you are really, or organizations that you're really trying to market this to that this could help?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, so our beachhead market, which is like the first people that we're targeting, is definitely like the mental health community. So people who have been through trauma, neurodivergent, maybe like highly sensitive individuals as well. And so I think that that would probably be like, where we're starting, but we're also trying to reach out to some like domestic abuse shelters as well, and like mental health organizations. We're actually working on this like initiative. This is like part of really like the foundation of Skip It, as I mentioned, like the accessibility component.
Mhm.
So we're building like the safe access initiative. So we're going to be providing Skip It either at like a discounted or free price to certain domestic abuse shelters so that they can provide it as like a free service to the people that they serve. Because again, it's like a harm reduction tool. That's how
Mhm.
I view it in a lot of cases, but also like for anybody. But yeah, so that's like kind of like what we're targeting. We also like recently are building like a relationship with Here For You. I'm wearing their hoodie right now. They're a great like mental health clothing brand, and they donate a portion back to the American Suicide Prevention Foundation, which is great. But really, like we're just trying to collaborate with anybody and everybody who's working on mental health, because again, like there's so many different angles that you can tackle it from. We're trying to like make a dent, but yeah, as you said earlier, Alex, it is very hard because like there's so many different moving components of it and different like
Mhm.
levels of it, and different places where it hits differently, as well as like cultural divides. So, we're also like trying to meet with like Active Minds, a couple other organizations like that. But it's really important that we, try to be as trauma informed as possible, and build these early relationships so that we can ensure that our product is like actually functioning how it should. We also have like mental health fellows in our team that are studying psychology so that they can bring in like the clinical insights, and we do plan on doing a clinical study as well to not only prove skip its
Nice.
usability, but also that there is a direct correlation with media consumption and mental health.
Yeah, without a doubt. I'm so excited for everything you're doing. It really just is. It's like I said, tech focused as we are as a society. This is amazing. It's going to truly save lives and impact so many people. So I'm so happy that you got to come
Thank
on
you.
here and explain everything, talk about everything, because this will be coming out right as or in the same month as Skip It is being released. So, or launched. I don't know the correct verbiage for it, but
Launch. Yes, yes.
perfect. Well, and so as we're wrapping up, what are some things that either you want our audience to know or just things that you're really working on getting involved with and helping to drive forward through the work you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. For anybody who's listening that also maybe feels a little bit more sensitive when they're watching, or they have to like cover their eyes, turn off the TV, look up the plot ahead of time, like I want those people to know that they're definitely not alone, and we are trying to work on something for them, also by people who experience the same or similar things. So would really appreciate if they could join like our Discord community, reach out to me. Like my email is emily@skipit.tech. Please send me an email if you're interested in learning more. I'm happy to have like a one-on-one chat as well, because again, like this is for the community by the community, so we need to be building with you as well. So
Amazing. Well, thank you for coming on today. As I mentioned, all of this information is going to be in the show notes. I am also going to get the information for the website that she started back in high school and get that
yeah.
information on our resource library because we don't have enough resources, honestly, on there. I don't think we ever will. And especially for just kind of the teen, preteen group. I mean,
Yeah,
it's really important to have those conversations. If you are listening and you are a parent or you have a younger person in your life that you can help drive this conversation, make the mental health discussion more normal, let them come to you when they need that support. It's so important to talk about that at a young age because it really will set the tone for the rest of their life and how they even approach those situations and conversations with their peers. So,
absolutely.
yeah, really lead by example. That really is how people follow. So, thank you again, Emily, for coming on. We're excited for Skip It. I know
Oh,
all of
thank
our
you.
listeners, you guys better be checking it out because I know I could use it. If you couldn't use it, you probably have a friend, family, child, somebody you know who might benefit from it. So spread the word about this amazing resource. We will definitely have more for you guys. Remember, if you or anybody you know is in a mental health crisis, please call or text the number 988. Be kind to yourselves and to one another, and we will have more episodes soon. Okay, give me one.
You're good.